at the elk refuge. I come out here because it's windy, it's harsh, it's barren, but it's close by. And I'm out for a 2-mile warm-up. This is my turnaround spot. I'm gonna go down and get out of the wind so I can talk with you a little bit. So let's head down there. I'm gonna head down here. It's windy. It's gonna be a good workout. Gonna be going into the headwind. All right, I'm gonna see you in a minute. Wow, as I'm out of the wind, you can see the wind blowing. Lots of drifts today, but my lens is gonna get all wet. All right, I'm gonna make this short and maybe go back to the truck and finish up. So I'm out, 2-mile warm up. I'm turning around and I'm doing a 2-mile steady threshold run. Feel great after yesterday's hills and eccentric work, and gonna put it together today, feeling good. Wipe the lens, and I'm gonna get back to the truck and talk to you about shoes, the Olympic Trial Marathon. So that was 2 days ago, and today it's unbelievable springtime in Jackson Hole. I am at the high school soccer field. The track is not open yet. I drove past to see if they had plowed the track yet, but not yet. But they're going to need to get on it because track practice starts on Monday for high school teams. But so again, you know, what a difference 2 days makes. It feels like spring today, and I think I wanted to abort that last video just because of the weather, and I can better execute it here in the sun on the turf. It's my drill and sprint day to continue to get my body ready for getting on the track more consistently here in the spring once the snow's melted on the track. So but what I was planning to talk about in the last video was the Olympic trials, and how there was a lot of surprises, maybe not so much with the winner of the men's, but a lot of the other top 3 men and women field was quite a bit of surprises as who made the team. And I'm going to talk about that. And there's 2 things that we can kind of take away from from what transpired during the race and ultimately at the finish of the race. And I'll touch on those real quickly at the end of this video. But what I really want to dive into is what I think the star of the buildup for the Olympic trials was the shoes, and more specifically the use of carbon plates now in shoes. And most of the big shoe manufacturers have now come out with racing shoes that have carbon fiber plates in the midsole of the shoes to help the runner propel themselves much more efficiently and better as they race. So again, there's a lot of talk about that, and all of the top 3 qualifiers of men and women had carbon fiber plates. And I would say I've seen numbers, the majority of the racers at the race were using carbon fiber plates within their shoes. So what I wanted to talk about is that, you know, the purpose of these plates is to, like I mentioned, it act as a spring. You know, you land, and those carbon fiber plates flex and essentially spring you forward as you take off, acting as a spring. And then there's, within some of the shoes, also the midsole is a new technology that also helps that propulsion forward. So it's the combination of the 2 that's really providing what they're considering, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7% increase or decrease in time, or increase in performance, however you want to look at it, for these marathon races. So what I want to talk about is that regardless of whether you think you want to race with carbon fiber plates or not, and you know, the data I've seen, it's hands down these shoes work, and work really, really well. But the point of my talk is that this is how our feet are designed to work. This is how our calves are designed to work. Our muscles, our ligaments, our tendons in our body are meant to act as springs and rubber bands to spring us forward when we're running. Okay, so there's things that we can do to continuously train this type of philosophy of creating elastic energy or a spring to spring us forward. Okay, just like the carbon fiber plate is. So again, this is not saying, hey, don't use the shoe, let's train the body. I'm saying there's things that we should do to train the body to continuously get our elastic energy better for us as a runner. Okay, and just let the shoe, if you decide to use the shoe, be kind of more icing on the cake. But the point is that there's a lot that we can do that the shoe is also doing. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate a drill that I have my athletes do that helps create this elastic energy. Again, the springs, especially within our calves and our feet. For those of you who are doing the foot strength program in my book, that's the foundation. That spring in our it's that quote, the spring in our step, right? Well, there's a spring in our step. We can use strength training of our feet to help create that elastic energy. Okay, so keep doing that. That's the foundation. But one drill that we can do is to really help our feet and our calves continuously improve this elastic energy and create more spring, more propulsion forward as we run. Okay, so I'm going to set the camera down, and this again is just a simple drill you can do as a warm-up in your workout, before your main sets, whenever. Sometimes I do it just at home at night in the house, so it can be done anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to set the camera down, and it's a simple exercise, and we'll kind of talk about it when I'm done. Okay. Okay, you can see, pretty simple. We're just hopping on one foot. And at the bottom of this video, I always list a lot of links to my drills that will help with everything that we're talking about today. But I just want to hone in on a variation of one, of hopping on one foot and propelling ourselves forward, creating that elastic energy. So again, it's just simply hopping on one foot. We're not looking to create a long leap, but the idea is a quick hop. Okay, the longer and the slower the hop, the more we're not trying to create that elastic energy. So we want it very quick, springing forward. Okay, and really use your arms to help with that propulsion. Okay, so give that a try. But then here's a variation, a more difficult variation of our progression from that you can do. All right, so I'm gonna set the camera down. Here we go. Okay, so you can see the progression there. I have my hands on my hips, and my other leg, I'm lifting my knee as high as I can and maintaining that height. And that's the key. So not only are we continuously working on that propulsion, that elastic energy within our feet and our calves, but now we're creating, by lifting that other leg, knees high, we're creating a functional movement, but also creating a great challenge for the core to hold and stabilize that leg. Okay, and like a lot of my drills, this is also a diagnostic drill for you to try to do to see how able you are to hold and lift that knee and keep it high while you're hopping, versus letting it go up and down like this. Okay, so use that as a diagnostic. See if you're able to keep your knee at a high level and keeping it stable at that high level versus getting that bouncing or that up and down movement that I just showed in that last one versus how I did it the first time of keeping that knee high. So again, the diagnostic test is to see how well you're able to stabilize all that, because that dictates speed as well, okay? And of course, then the drill itself becomes the corrective measure, okay, to get better and better at it, as well as all the other drills and core that are in the book as well. So, okay, so try that. Again, you can do it anywhere. Warm up between each main set, at home, at night, whenever, okay? Don't think it has to, there's a rule as to when when you can do these, okay? I'm doing them with a very flexible, what I call a strength shoe, where I'm warming up in this. I'm gonna throw some spikes on, but this is a very, 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 very flexible shoe that's very, very minimal. Probably the most minimal shoe I have that I use as a warm up at the track and doing drills when I can't go barefoot. So if it was a little warmer, I might go do these barefoot. So a lot of my drills I do barefoot. So play around with that, shoes or going barefoot with the drills, okay? All right, so next exercise, we're gonna run over to use one of the benches, and I'll see you over there. All right, we're gonna use one of these benches. But another key aspect of these shoes, aside from having the carbon plate and the midsole foam that I talked about, is that the companies, especially Nike, talk about these shoes. Part of the reason they do so well and the purpose of the carbon fiber plate is to create rigidity and stiffness in the shoe to help spring you forward, okay? So stiffness, rigidity, those are sometimes words that maybe have kind of a negative connotation when it comes to our body. But I've mentioned in other videos, it's very, very important for us to have stiffness in our legs, in our muscles, to have rigidity in our legs and muscles, okay? And oftentimes that's confused with being tight or lacking mobility. Having good mobility is very important, and that comes through strength training, but continuously having the mindset of being flexible and being hyper flexible and losing tightness and rigidity and responsiveness within our muscles really leads to dysfunction, poor running, and injury and loss of speed, okay? So we need that rigidity. We need tightness in our muscles to become stronger, faster, more resilient runners, okay, regardless of our distance, okay? So again, pointing back at these shoes, they're meant to be rigid. They're meant to be very stiff so they propel you forward, and that's just like our muscles. So one exercise that we can do to help with this rigidity and stiffness and creating that elastic energy, again, to have elastic energy, think of a rubber band. We want the rubber bands within our muscles to be really taut, really snappy, versus that rubber band that's been overstretched through time that has no spring left in it, okay? We want this nice springy rubber band, okay? And this exercise really helps with that, okay? And again, it helps with injury as well. So I'm gonna grab a bench, and these are depth jumps. And I'm gonna do 2 variations, just like we did with the drills, okay? The key here is that we don't want too high of a bench, okay? Ideally, we don't wanna go any higher than 20 inches in height with our box or our step, okay? That's 50 centimeters for those people in centimeters. This one looks a little bit higher, so just take that into consideration. When I'm at home, I'm with my athletes that I train here in Jackson, I'm using definitely a box, a step that's lower than 20 inches for these particular exercises, okay? So the first one is just a simple depth jump where I'm landing and sticking my landing, creating that stiffness, okay? So here goes. Okay, very simple, right? So again, I think from a mindset standpoint, you've got to get away from when we think about doing strength training or exercises to help with strength, that it's not always meant to be exertion. It's not always meant to be taxing. Everybody can work hard, but we're training the brain with this exercise to land and be stiff, okay? For all the reasons I just explained, to help when you land, when you're running, to have a quick transition from the landing to the going forward. In all my videos, I've talked about how important that quick transition is. Okay, so this depth jump is just training your body to become stiff, coil that spring, and then spring you forward in a very quick manner, okay? So the key with that exercise is to land and be stiff. Land and hold it, stick it, just like a gymnast jumping off the high beam, okay? The second one, the variation off of that, is a depth jump with a quick jump up, okay? And this is where it becomes a little bit more crucial to make sure your box or your step is not above 20 inches, okay? And the idea being is the higher the box creates a longer transition when you land and jump. So you're gonna be slower just because it's a higher, you're jumping from a higher depth, okay? So for this exercise, we actually want it lower, okay? And ideally, here I would have a lower step, so I can still kind of demonstrate it without it being such a big deal, but make sure their box is really, really short so you can have a quick hop, okay? So it looks like this. Okay, pretty simple, okay? Again, we're training the brain to land and get off it very quickly, okay? So again, it's right on the border of being a little too high for me. So I would like to be a little quicker. So really make sure it's not about the height of the step. You've got to reduce it and be under that 20 inches so you can really land and be quick and jump off of it, okay? And again, you're not jumping forward. We're not necessarily worried about how high we jump once we land, but the key mindset is to land and jump as quickly as possible, okay? So again, we're training that elastic energy to, when you land on one foot, to get off of it quickly, to propel yourself forward, to help improve your speed, your elastic energy, your injury prevention. All of this goes to everything that we want as runners, okay? So again, try it and let me know what questions you have on that. So I'm gonna finish my warm-up. I'm gonna do my drills, all the drills kind of I've listed below, and then I'm gonna finish up with coming back on camera and talking about the two things we can learn from the Olympic trials that can help you with your running as well. Okay, all right, I'll see you in a little bit. Nice. Oh, it's so good to be in short sleeves, or at least roll up the long sleeves and sweat again. What a day. Yeah, that was good. It's good to have the spikes on and run fast and not worry about the cold and just kind of get ready for spring. So anyways, 2 points that we can learn from the Olympic trials. Number one, if you look at the top 3 men and women qualifiers, all 6 of those had a negative split. And for those of you who don't know what a negative split is, simply means that their second half of the race was faster than their first. And that, from all my experience with my athletes, that always means you have a good race. You might not qualify for Olympics always, but that means you've probably had a really good race for yourself. And focus on being patient early on, not blowing yourself up. So much about the surprises of who qualified go into this, and how the qualifiers were patient early. Okay, this is a hilly course, this is a windy course. They didn't blow themselves up. A lot of the favorites blew themselves up. Okay, and so having a negative split, regardless of what the distance is really a great mindset to keep you patient early. And this is where, especially with you ultramarathoners, when we're on trails, where the heart rate can really come in to help early in the race to keep you honest and keep you at your own level of ability based on the distance that you're running. So negative split really leads to a really good race. Number 2, I think 4 of the 6 qualifiers, and I think this is interesting, 4 of the 6 qualifiers were coming off injury. And I think most of those 4 had surgery, major surgery. Okay, so that meant in the buildup in the last year or so, all the favorites were racing a lot, and that's why they become the favorite. They had good results the last 2 years, and that's why they became the favorite. But 4 of these 6 that had surgery, that were injured, they did well. They qualified. And so what does this mean? This means they didn't race a lot. Okay, they had great training, but with surgery comes rehab, strength training. In most sports, when an elite athlete is injured, they almost come back stronger. With the advancement of all the training modalities these days, look at ACLs, football players, they come back stronger after an injury, okay, because they put the time in, because they're injured, to come back stronger. So looking at these 4 that had been injured, they did not race a lot. They probably did a ton of strength training and they came back stronger. But I think the key here is that they didn't race a lot. And I see that through all my years of triathlon, through all my years of coaching, ultramarathoning, especially ultramarathons, is that ultramarathons, they just race way too much. You know, 4 or 5 long races, they're just burning themselves out and they don't realize it. And I think that's what happened here at the Atlanta race for the Olympic qualifiers. The so-called people, or the racers that were favored, had great races leading into it, but they bombed. Okay, they weren't fresh. People coming off the injuries were fresh. They had a great race. So I know there's a lot to understanding what the proper amount of races for your distance, for what you want to accomplish, really goes into how much you race or not. And again, I go back to ultramarathoning, is that most of racers, most ultramarathoners race way too much, and they start to see diminishing returns. How often do you hear, you know, your first race was your best, and then you start to deteriorate after that, okay? And so there's a lot of surprises here at the Olympic trials, a lot of people winning these races that maybe you've not even heard of, okay? That's par for the course for ultramarathon. You look at all the big races from year to year, there's always someone new winning most of these big races, because I believe the athletes are just racing way too much, okay? And I think there's a lot to that if your goal is to continue to progress with your performance. If just, you know, having a bucket list and doing the major marathons and doing how many marathons you want to do in a whole year or in 5 years, if that's the goal, that's fine. But if true performance is your goal, really look at reducing how much long races you do within a year. Okay, look to do the shorter races, hone your speed. Okay, that all goes into creating more performance for longer races. Okay, case in point, Galen Rupp. Okay, he won the men's race going away. He was also the fastest miler at that race. Okay, so it just goes that every speed distance is important. So don't race too much. Look to race a lot shorter races. All right. Vitamin D, that's all I got for you today. That was a long one, but it's a good one. Try this all out. Let me know your questions, and we'll see you next time, hopefully in more sun. See ya.